Hey everyone, Andy Raffel from eTeknix.com, and today is another special day when it comes to NVIDIA. They're marking, I guess, this occasion by launching a new graphics card. We saw the 1660 Ti not too long ago. Well, now we got the 1660. And before I actually get started, it's well worth me telling you to stay tuned until the end of this video because the EVGA one, we're going to be giving it away. So 1660, I guess what is it all about? Well, when you look at the 1660 Ti, we have got another video for that will be linked somewhere. So if you do want to find out a little bit more about kind of the technology behind that, it's going to be very, very similar to this. So I'm not actually going to delve too much into kind of, the full-on specs of what's available in terms of, the GPU core. Just to let you know, it is Turing, it's the T116 GPU, kind of everything that you expect, just a slightly lower clock. Now, I am obviously going to be comparing this against other cards of this price point, similar price points, and even, a little bit above and a little bit below in all of our benchmarks. So I guess really before I sort of get started with kind of looking at the performance, let me tell you what I actually have here to start with. So we've got the EVGA GTX 1660. This is the XC Ultra Edition. And as I said in the beginning of this video, we are actually going to be giving this exact card away. So yeah, you'll find all the details about that in the end of this video. Obviously different price points. So we also have the ZOTAC 1660, which is this little beast down here. Now with that one, it's more aimed at kind of, MSRP pricing. So it hasn't got, the most amazing cooler when comparing it against some of the other cards out there. Then we have the GIGABYTE Gaming OC GTX 1660, again a slightly different price point, slightly different clocks, and I will be mentioning all that as well. And then we have the MSI Cardboard Edition. Yes, it does look very similar to the, I believe it was a RTX 2070 that we did, but I will tell you now the performance results we have are legitimate and there's a very good reason why we have that. Basically, MSI took the card away from us, we didn't get that long with it, but we wanted to feature it anyway. So we have performance results, sadly no overclock results for that because we didn't get time. Now, in terms of specifications on these cards, obviously they are all clocked slightly different, and that's because they have different price points as well. So just going over sort of some of the key figures with that. So when it comes to the clock speed, they all have exactly the same clock speeds. They are all 1500 megahertz. Now, when it comes to the actual boost clock, this is where they kind of vary. So starting with the ZOTAC card, which is obviously the MSRP card. Now, the boost clock on this is 1765. On the GIGABYTE Gaming OC, obviously they do have kind of their own MSRP model, but they wanted to push the Gaming OC. Again, a slightly different boost clock, so this is 1860. When it comes to the EVGA card, which is the XC Ultra, the boost clock on that is 1845. And then when it comes to the MSI, the real one, not the cardboard edition, because I mean the boost clock on that is through the roof. With the MSI, again 1860, so very, very similar to the GIGABYTE card. Now in terms of the memory, these all sport exactly the same speeds, which is 2001 megahertz or 8000 when you're looking at sort of effective speeds and so forth. But yeah, before I sort of go on any more about anything, let's have a look at the sort of performance results of how these cards all fare at stock. So now that we've looked at all of the performance results of these, what we're going to do next...
Andy,
Yep.
the sticker.
2 secs. So as I said, this isn't the 2070, ignore everything that you just saw. But now that we've looked at the performance results of these cards, I guess really it's a matter of kind of which one do you go for? And a lot of that comes down to overclocking. So yes, we did sort of push all of these cards. Apart from the MSI one, as I explained earlier, we didn't actually have as much time with the card as what we were, I guess, hoping for. But we are looking at getting that back, and we will add that into our written review, so you will have some figures there. Now, talking about the overclocking on these sort of results on these cards, let's start with the ZOTAC. Now, with the ZOTAC, we were actually able to push the core to 1752. Now, the problem is when you're overclocking on the core, it doesn't actually really translate to anything because of the way that GPU boost works. If anything, that's what we want to be looking at, the boost clock. And we will actually put up some figures of exactly kind of how things were boosting on all of these cards as they were actually being tested, because while you're at desktop, it's just going to drop down to sort of 350, 400 megahertz, which doesn't really show you too much. But I have got some figures as GPU-Z was kind of displaying the boost clocks, but the most important thing is looking in either something like Precision X, MSI Afterburner, and really seeing kind of what that boost is, because it will fluctuate. But to go through kind of the GPU-Z figures, you're going to find with the ZOTAC that we managed to get the boost clock up to 2007 megahertz. With the Gigabyte, we managed to get it to 2009, and with the EVGA, we got it to 1990. So yes, the EVGA didn't quite go as far as what we were hoping, but still not too dissimilar. But obviously a lot of that's going to come down into sort of performance metrics as well. Now, as I said, with the MSI one, we didn't get a chance to do that, but I'll show you all of these sort of overclock results and what kind of percentage increases we got when we sort of did actually apply these overclocks in terms of the acoustics, temperature, power consumption, and also a game and a synthetic benchmark. So let's take a little look at those. So performance aside, obviously another key aspect of which one to kind of go for is going to come down to cooler and also price as well. Now, when it comes to the price, obviously we have the ZOTAC card. So the ZOTAC card is basically aimed at being MSRP. So I'm going to refer to my phone here. So in the UK, we're looking at $199.99, which, you know, is the MSRP for this card. In the EU, we're going to be looking at $239.99, and then in the US, $219.99 plus taxes and shipping. So what ZOTAC have actually been able to do here is really sort of focus on getting this card out at the MSRP. If you do want something, I guess, slightly better that's going to compete with sort of, you know, the higher end cards on a stock performance basis that kind of have that factory overclock, then you're going to be looking at the AMP edition. And we're seeing that from quite a few brands now. Instead of having 6, 7, 8 different models of a graphics card, they're going with essentially 2. So we have our kind of, you know, base model, and then you'd have your kind of factory overclock model. So in terms of value for money, yes, the ZOTAC card is pretty much the one to go for. Obviously, that is the only MSRP card that I have here. I was meant to get a card from Palette, which I believe was an MSRP card, but sadly it got stuck at customs, but maybe that's something we can look at a later date. It's also worth noting that the MSRP card was actually the first card that arrived with us, and because of that, we actually did decide to stick it into a system which we're essentially calling the $1,200 1660 kind of gaming build time-lapse. So it's worth checking out that video. Again, we'll link to it in the description, as well as somewhere above my head. I never know where to point. Next up in the stack in terms of pricing is going to be the Gigabyte Gaming OC. So from what I can tell, they have a gaming OC, then they have a gaming model, and that's basically it. They're the kind of two models that they're going to be focusing on. In terms of the cooler, you get a triple fan compared to sort of, you know, a twin fan like the ZOTAC. You get a little bit of RGB with this little panel on the top. Other than that, they're pretty much the same. You get a backplate on the back. So yes, you're paying a little bit extra. But when you look at the size difference between these two cards, I mean, you're basically having to pay for this much extra material in terms of the plastic, the extra fan, the extra part of the heatsink. So yes, that is going to give you improved performance when you are looking at overclocking and having that factory overclock as standard. But it's really down to you and personal preference as to if you feel that that is a necessary kind of jump. So as I say, you're looking at sort of $199.99 for this, $224.99 for this, but you can see in the performance results that there was a bit of jump in performance when you went to this from the ZOTAC card. Then next up in the stack was the EVGA. Now looking at the price of that, only £5 more expensive than this from what we're told as kind of the guide price. So straight away you're going from $224.99 up to $229.99. A little bit different in terms of styling. You don't get a full backplate. Instead you kind of get this extended bit, which when you look at sort of size difference, that extended bit starts pretty much just after the ZOTAC card. So again, you're going to be paying that extra sort of, you know, price for the extra materials. But I'm going to be honest, out of these 3 cards, apart from the cardboard edition, because I made that and it looks amazing, the EVGA 1660 Ti, sorry, I knew I was going to say that at some point. This 1660 XE Ultra is probably the nicest looking card out of all of them. Now, I want to obviously look at 1660 Ti. So this is the palette card that we did before, and straight away you can see sort of size difference. It's about the same size as the ZOTAC Twin Fan. So essentially you've got to think, are you going to go for an MSRP card like this in the Ti variant, or are you going to go for sort of the more expensive one? And then there's the MSI card to talk about. Pricing for that is $249.99. Now initially we was actually told that was going to be $259.99, which is a lot of money. Yes, it is the Gaming X model that we looked at, which is, you know, the creme de la creme, looks amazing, performs amazing, but there were better performing cards as you saw in our benchmarks. So there's really a lot to sort of, you know, contend with. Where do you go? Do you go MSRP? Do you go higher overclock? If you are going sort of, you know, higher overclock with a better cooler, something like this, or the MSI card, you're then getting closer to where sort of, you know, the price of an MSRP 1660 Ti is. So yeah, a lot of decisions. And we had exactly the same with the 1660 Ti. There was the point of, do you go for sort of, you know, high-end 1660 Ti or a low-end 2060? I'd say that that was probably the easier decision to make between the 2 cards, but between the 1660 and the Ti, I think it's a lot harder, because you can push these cards, as you saw in the performance figures, to kind of, you know, levels that are very, very similar to the Ti. But then if you bought a Ti, you could push that further as well. So there you go. I guess really, if I'm looking at it, I'd recommend these cards for a variety of different reasons. 1 for pricing, 2 for performance, 3 for styling, and then styling and performance with the MSI card. So that's why you're having these little jumps. Let me know in the comments section below which one you'd go for. Now, if you are looking at going for one of these cards, then it's a perfect opportunity for you to win this one. So as I say, this is the EVGA 1660 XE Ultra, and we're going to be giving it away. All of the kind of details on entering are going to be in the description below. Yes, we're going to be running it through Gleam, and it's going to take you through to the eTeknix website, where you're going to find all of the details, all of the terms and conditions and so forth. There's going to be loads of ways of entering, whether it be through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, other social media platforms, or even getting your daily entries as well. So there you go. I'm not really going to ramble on too much longer, because I think this video has gone on long enough, but hopefully you've got kind of all of the figures and everything in your mind that tells you, you know, everything you need to know. You know, we have cards that are very similar to a Ti. They still have an 8-pin power connector. They still have huge amounts of overclocking potential for, you know, the memory being GDDR5, just like we saw. I'll start that bit again. So there you have it. I mean, when we look at it, there is still a lot of potential for these upcoming cards. You know, they still have an 8-pin power connector, which kind of gives you that overclock ability. Just like we saw with, you know, GDDR5 on Pascal-based cards as well. So yes, you have the potential to overclock. Yes, you have the potential to really sort of, you know, get something that fits in with what you want to do. And maybe you have an allegiance to a certain brand. Like I say, let me know in the comments section below which one you'd go for. If you'd go for a 1660 at all, maybe you'd go for a Ti, maybe you go for a 2060, or any other card, or maybe even something from AMD. RX 580 is a little bit cheaper. RX 590 is about the same price, but you know, performance maybe not there. Who knows? Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know, and you know what to do. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye bye. See you later. Get the cardboard edition. It's nice. Can never get comfortable. like this.
Just trying to do your like distinguished philosopher pose. Right, it is recording. Everything's recording. You can say something sensible now if you want.
Oh, that was a low blow. Say something sensible. Right.
Alright, look this way.
No. I don't want to. I'm sick of you bossing me around.